Hello and welcome to the sixth and final part of my narrated Let's Play of Heavy Rain. So we resume with Ethan, about to go to the fifth and final trial, 961 Rainbow Lane, the last letters. And here we are in some kind of weird art gallery place. Just how much money is the origami killer supposed to have had? I mean, we've had some fairly shitty, obviously low rent apartments.
The last origami figure.
But then we have this place that, you know, wouldn't seem out of place in fucking ancient Athens.
The last
had the car as well, the sports car that he just gave to Ethan to wreck. And presumably did with the, you know, 8 or so other fathers. The guy must be loaded.
The last trial. The last question. Are you prepared to give your life to save your sons? There is a deadly poison in this vial. It will kill you in exactly 60 minutes. If you drink it, you will get the last letters of the address. You will have enough time to save your son and say goodbye to him, but then you will die. You can drink the vial or decide to leave. The choice is yours.
Bet you saw this one coming. Interesting moral choice. In the end, I take the decision that while Ethan doesn't have the right to sacrifice a life of innocence to his sons, he does have the right to sacrifice his own.
He loses his father, but at least he's alive. Maybe it's the right thing to do.
Keep in mind that at this point I have only solved 2 of the trials, because I wasn't willing to kill the drug dealer and I just sucks at the butterfly trial. So, he kinda needs strictness.
There's got to be another way. I can't kill myself to save my son.
So I drink this incredibly convenient poison, in as much as apparently it will have no debilitating effects for exactly 60 minutes and then he will die.
The last letters have been sent to your phone.
So, 852 Roosevelt something is what we have to go on.
I did what I had to,
Stopwatch there with 60 minutes
Dad's
marked on
coming
it.
to save you.
Except that he drank the potion, he drank the poison with at least a few seconds before he picked up the watch, so that count can't be accurate, surely. Anyway, here he is in his hijacked taxi, hiding from the police.
I'm nowhere and I'm out of time. Damn fucking shitty letters from this fucking address! Come on! There's gotta be a way to do this!
I'm not sure why he thinks holding the phone to his ear will do any good.
Several different addresses fit these letters. God, they're scattered all over the city. I don't have time to check them all.
So you have to choose an address, basically.
I may only have time for one address. If Sean's not there, I'm done. It's a crapshoot.
So I pick one and go. It looked like it might be near railroads, and we know from Jaden that the body's always found near railroads. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're imprisoned near them, but I don't know. It's as good a lead as any. Speaking of everyone's favourite moronic drug addict, here he is, Norman Jaden of the Federal Investigation Bureau. No, Federal Bureau of Investigation. I can spell.
We've only got a few more hours left to save Sean Mars. There has to be a god loose somewhere. It's probably staring me in the face. This kid's gonna die, and I'm going around in circles!
All packed up and ready to go?
What are you talking about?
The investigation's over. We know who did it. We no longer need your services anymore, Norman. So you can ride your files all the way back to Washington. I'd be lying if I said I was gonna miss you.
The investigation isn't over. You have absolutely nothing on Mars.
Mars is guilty. Case closed. Anyway, it's no concern of yours now. You're off the case. So pack up and fuck off.
Blake, you are an unbalanced, psychopathic asshole.
I'll take that as a compliment. Honestly, I don't give a shit what you think. I found the origami killer. Everyone's happy. End of story. Have a nice trip back, Norman.
I'm sorry, it is impossible to take that name seriously. You just cannot say Norman in a threatening voice and not crack up. Anyway, yeah, bad things, drugs. You don't even get the choice not to take tryptocane there.
The killer's name is here. Somewhere in this data. I just have to find it. Find it before it's too late.
Oh, one last thing, sir. You should be careful not to overindulge you know what. It can be dangerous. Very dangerous.
The presumably imaginary
You'll end
butler
up killing
turns up
you
again.
if you're not careful. That would be most unfortunate, sir.
In my first playthrough, I kept having him take tryptocane because, I don't know, I panicked. So eventually he died of an overdose. Fortunately, this time we've resisted the urge enough times. So yeah, we go through the clues again, and we have new clues this time.
Two receipts from the same
Lagoon.
gas station. Might be near the killer's home.
One thing, the gas receipt should narrow it down quite a fair bit.
Ugh, that doesn't get us anywhere.
No prints on them, but geo-analysis.
The killer lives in this zone. 342 people live around there. Not good enough. Gotta find a means of identifying the killer more precisely.
Well, we know his rough build, his size. We have his gun. Panicking for no reason, really.
The gun the killer left at the Blue Lagoon. Perhaps there's some way of tracing it. Impounded in a police case 5 years ago. The gun is still supposed to be in police custody. Who checked it out? If not a cop.
So suddenly we think the killer might be a police officer. Or at least somebody able to steal from the police and have that theft not recorded. So looking like a police officer. P.S. Next to Gordy Kramer, I think Blake is the most obvious red herring in this game. So yeah, just going through more stuff.
He's white, age between 30 and 45. He is intelligent, calm, and determined. An organized type. He has a car. He's probably employed, but his work allows him free time. There is always a railroad adjacent to where the bodies are found. and all the victims disappeared in the fall.
Map.
Looks like the killer is a cop. Carter Blake! That would explain the dead-end investigation desire to frame Ethan Mars.
Except it's not Blake. It just isn't. And indeed, geo-analysis of this.
A cop. There's only one cop geoprofiling zone. Gotcha. He owns a warehouse on the docks. If I'm wrong, Sean Mars is dead.
Turns out one former police officer owns a warehouse on the docks. Hey, it's on the docks. That's where Ethan went. Thank fuck for that.
Are you sure it's the right car? At the docks. Call in the SWAT team. Oh, and I'll need a chopper. Today? Of course I'll need it today, you fucking imbecile.
Let me stay with
Meanwhile,
you, Scott. I
Lauren
don't
has
wanna go.
fulfilled her purposes as the
Look,
plot and is
it'll
being
only take
shipped
a
off on
couple
a
of
train.
days. Long enough to get this resolved.
I can't just wait while you confront my son's killer.
It's the only way, Lauren. Trust me. Now go stay with your mother for a few days. I'll come and get you when this is all over.
Tell me who the Aura killer is. I want to know who killed my son.
Listen, when I'm done, I'll tell you everything I know. I promise.
Romantic subplot number 2. Kinda. Will be a lot more plausible, except for a plot twist we're about to discover which completely wrecks Scott Shelby's character. Meanwhile, in the past.
I'll get help. Just hang on. Jawad, hurry. I think the water's rising. I'm hurrying. I'll be right back.
Exactly why we couldn't have had the conclusion to this flashback at the time the flashback was told, I'm not sure. We already know he's not going to save his brother. We've already been told that by the convenient gravekeeper dude.
Dad, I've got to get Dad. He's the only one who's John. Gotta move.
But hey, we get to listen to this kid speak a bit more, which is always quite amusing. Highly useful parent.
Dad, it's John. He found your body. He's
Get out of
dying.
here, you little pest. Leave me
He's gonna
alone.
come, Dad. Come on, John's gonna die. John's gonna
Well,
die.
that'll be one less greedy mouth to feed, won't it? Go away.
Please, Dad, I'm begging you. John's gonna die. John's gonna
What
die,
did I tell
Dad.
ya? Scrap!
Please, Dad. You've got to save John. I tried, John. I really tried. But he wouldn't come.
So instead of running to find anyone else, I decided to come back and tell you that you're basically screwed.
Don't forget about my Scotty.
Yeah. The brother's name is Scott Shepherd. Guess what family took him in for foster care? that would be the Shelby family. Yep, here's the big plot twist, guys. Scott Shelby is the origami killer. And far from actually being a private investigator hired to track down the origami killer, he is tracking down the evidence that he himself left behind and is destroying it. Okay, rant time. You remember what I said earlier about the boundary between player and character? I have been playing as Scott Shelby at this point for about 7 hours. For the entire game I have been playing as Scott Shelby. This is a game where I am actively encouraged to invest in my characters and the choices that they make. For one of them to turn round and be the very killer I'm supposed to be searching is unfair. It breaches the rules. This plot twist cannot be seen coming, and I realise here that I'm inviting contradiction by those who did see it coming, but I'm going to argue that the game sets out at the start that you have access to these characters. These characters are your avatars. You have access to their choices, their motivations, and their thoughts. And it is therefore entirely reasonable to discount them from suspicion, any of them, with a possible exception of Ethan because maybe he's doing it and he's not aware of it, which will be fine, if lame. But for one of them to consciously be the origami killer makes no sense, and is a betrayal of player investment in Shelby. Because now it turns out that all the decisions that I made as Shelby, those decisions that I made because I wanted to be the good guy tracking down the killer and helping the families, it turns out the game turns around and goes, no, you actually made those because you were going around killing off leads and destroying evidence, which was not my intention with Shelby. But in a somewhat less high-order complaint, you know where this really makes no sense? We hear his thoughts. Throughout the game, you hear his thoughts. And he has thoughts like, there's one I remember, I haven't been sleeping too well since the murders started up again. No one would think like that. You would think, I haven't been sleeping well since I started killing again, or something like that. You wouldn't passivize it like that. I don't know if passivize is a word, but hell, there's even one thought where he hopes that the rain will stop. I mean, he obviously doesn't hope that the rain will stop because he's using it to drown people. His entire plan relies on the rain not stopping. So yeah, he's the killer, Scott Shelby. I hate that plot twist. As I say, it's a betrayal of player investment. Scott Shelby is not the character that I made him. And for a game, I could maybe accept it, maybe, in a game where you're not encouraged to personally identify with the characters and the choices that you make. But in Heavy Rain, you very much are. That's the idea, that these characters, they're good or bad and live or die according to your choices. And Shelby just doesn't. I mean, we have Madison here, and I articulated similar ideas when it turned out that Madison was a journalist. But at least Madison being a journalist wasn't actually mutually exclusive with the choices that I'd made for her. Shelby being the killer is entirely exclusive with the choices I made. Suddenly, all the actions that I did were actively working against me as the player, because the player's desire was to end the killings and not perpetuate them. Anyway, Madison, having finally managed to trace the name Scott Shelby, proceeds to break into his apartment. Now, I must admit, I'm a complete idiot in this section and will screw it up entirely.
What's your touch, girl?
You'll see what I mean, but it will give me time, a little bit of time, to talk about things more in general about the game.
The origami killer's apartment.
So anyway,
there must be something that'll tell me where Sean Mars is.
She breaks into Shelby's apartment and starts looking for evidence. And just, yeah, Shelby, who is by far the most likeable and well-developed character in the whole thing, it all turns out to be a lie, and instead he's just some run-of-the-mill killer with a really boring Freudian excuse that, oh, my father was bad. So I decided that the correct thing after my brother died horribly was to make sure that lots of other children died horribly as well. suddenly all the decent character development turns out to be a lie as well. I, as the player, wanted to help Lauren. I wanted to help her find her child's killer. And now it turns out I was doing exactly the opposite. And I know that's supposed to be clever. It's not clever.
That's where
because
the smell
it
of burning
breaks...
comes from. Evidence going up in smoke.
It breaks the rules.
A cop's uniform. Always trust a cop. That's why children went with him. He was dressed as a cop.
Anyway, we find this sort of secret cupboard thing. And yes, there were clues. There's the typewriter on his desk. Just sort of the obviously antique typewriter, which was clearly used to type the letters. But it's just... fiction has to have rules, and this fiction says that you have access to the thought... you literally have access to the thoughts of your characters.
Shit, it needs a password.
So it's perfectly valid to go, oh no, none of my characters can consciously be the origami killer because I am my characters and I would know. That is a valid thing to say. And the game just turns around and breaks that rule in order to be able to give this precious bloody plot twist.
An address. It's gotta be where Sean Mars is. Hurry, there's no time to
lose.
lose.
The correct address. And guess who's back?
So you found my little secret?
Fully an NPC now.
Over, Scott.
Completely
All
against
those
your
children
control
killed
and
just to
suddenly
find a father capable of saving his
solely
son.
an antagonist.
You don't understand.
There's one child left. There might still be time to save him. Let him go. Do what your father couldn't do.
Get in there.
Anyway, yeah, escape sequence. But yeah, a good plot twist is not defined by just shock value. He set the apartment on fire. Why not just shoot her? Like, seriously. He had her at gunpoint. He could literally just shot her and there was sod all that we could have done about it. Anyway, this is why I screw up this escape sequence. The first time I played this game, Madison survived, but that was a while ago, and I just completely screw up this escape sequence. So Madison dies, which is a shame. Pissed me off a bit, because, you know, bad ending and all that. But yeah, a good plot twist is not defined simply by shock value. You can't do something that makes no sense and go, "Ooh, plot twist, exciting!" That's not how it works. You know, there are rules. It has to work. It has to be something where you can look at the facts and go, yeah, actually, they could lead to that twist. You know, they're allowed to be misleading, as long as you can sort of look at it and go, oh yeah, it actually does work if the butler did it, or whatever, but you cannot simply break the rules in order to create a plot twist. That is bad writing.
It's way too high. I'll kill myself if I jump. I gotta find something else.
So you have the option to jump here. I decide not to because, well, it's too high. And try to get to the door. Can't do that. So we head into the kitchen. for no particular reason. Now, at this point, apparently something's going to explode or something. Like there's that pressure gauge which is slowly building. So you hide under a table. Now, I wasn't quite sure what was going on at this point, so I decided to look into Madison's thoughts. I believe I did. At some point. Yes? No? Did I? Yes, I did.
Gotta find some way to shield myself from the explosion.
Now what you should do, kind of obviously, is hide in the fridge, Indiana Jones style, and that protects you from the blast. But, I don't know, I just hid under the table. I was a little bit confused, and for some reason I thought that was adequate. I'm not sure why, it clearly isn't, and so she dies, and that's kind of shit and kind of stupid on my part. I guess I just wasn't quite sure what was going on. I'm still not quite sure what it's supposed to be that explodes. So, yeah, basically she just dies. Sorry about that. Kind of sucks, I know, but so passes Madison Page. Let's just give you the chance to bring something else up. You remember Ethan's blackouts? Yeah, so do I. The blackouts that, you know, coincide with the abduction of a child, and where he wakes up near Carnaby Square, which we now know is the place where John Shepard died, with the origami figure in his hand. Yeah, those are never explained. At all. Seems a pretty big plot thread to leave dangling, right? And you're thinking maybe, well, you know, this isn't a bit of an open-ended game. Maybe if you'd taken a different route through the game, you would have discovered the reason for the blackouts. Nope, they're never explained. At all. They're in any section of the game. It's not one of those weird games when, depending on what you do, a different character could be the killer. That wouldn't make much sense. I'm quite glad they didn't do that. Scott Shelby is always the origami killer, and Ethan Mars is never the origami killer. So why the blackouts? Well, I looked it up. Apparently, they originally were going to explain why the blackouts occurred. You discover that Scott Shelby was also at the site where Jason Mars died, and presumably this triggered some kind of traumatic flashback to his own 10-year-old brother dying in similarly tragic circumstances. Incidentally, speaking of death, Madison is about to die. So the original explanation was that the shared trauma of... yeah, she dies. The shared trauma of... Oh, by the way, this is Sean. Welcome to the last chapter of the game. Shared trauma of Shelby and Ethan created a psychic link between the two of them. And due to this psychic link, every time Shelby went on his nefarious child abducting activities, Ethan at the same time would suffer a blackout and travel to this place that was subconsciously very important to Shelby and therefore now to Ethan because of this psychic link. It was eventually decided that all this psychic supernatural bullshit in an otherwise non-supernatural game was a dumb and unnecessary inclusion. Which is quite correct. It would have been a dumb and unnecessary inclusion and makes no sense whatsoever. So they removed it. But here's the thing, they didn't... I'm not sure why I paused at this point. Oh well. Yeah, we're... Okay, so we got to the warehouse. I paused for a bit. This gives me a chance to continue what I was going to say. Yeah, they removed the reason for the blackouts, but they didn't remove the blackouts. Now, if that's not bad writing, kindly fax me an explanation as to what is, because now you just literally have this... It's the most... It's the most massive plot hole ever. Never mind whether you agree with me about why Shelby shouldn't be the origami killer, even if you disagree with me on that.
I've been looking for a long time, Ethan.
You can't excuse that plot hole.
Looking for a father that would be able to do...
This incredibly important story element is not explained. There is literally no explanation of it.
Sacrifice himself.
Anyway, final confrontation. Ethan Mars and Scott Shelby.
Oh, I searched. And then... I remembered you.
those murders just to find a father capable of saving his son.
Just to find a father? Do you have any
I'm
idea how it
acting.
feels to be a worthless nothing in your father's eyes? Believe me, I've suffered just as much as my victims.
Apart from the part where they
Finished your
drowned
damn
horribly
trial.
over 5
Now
days
give
in
me back
Rainwall.
my
I didn't
son.
suffer that bit, but apart from that.
There. All you have to do is open that.
So finally we have the chance to save Sean Mars. Apparently he was going to shoot Ethan, which doesn't make much sense. But... Anyway, so Norman appears from nowhere and Ethan just goes, fuck it. And saves his child. It's fair enough, I suppose, you know. Priorities and all that. No Madison here either because she died. So yeah, inexcusable plot holes aside, enjoy the ending to Heavy Rain. First things first, we are successful in saving the life of Sean Mars. You have to really screw up for absolutely no one to be able to save the life of Sean Mars. Ethan managed to find the right place, but even if he didn't, Norman managed to get there. Speaking of Norman, time for the game's final fight sequence. I was hoping that Shelby, as another player character, wouldn't have to die here. I was hoping I could make a peaceful arrest or something. So, fighting on a conveyor belt. Why a conveyor belt is still going in an abandoned warehouse, I'm not sure, but drama. I'm very glad that, you know, you didn't actually have to balance in this game. The game at least does that for you. So I dodge all the shit that he throws at you. Well, kind of dodge. Meanwhile, a bit of whiplash there, but
Don't help me, son, please. Breathe. You gotta breathe. Don't leave me. Please. Sean, don't leave me.
he's alive, he's fine.
Oh, Sean. Oh. I thought you were gone.
Dad, I knew you'd come and save me.
Apparently he's not at all traumatised by his 5 days spent in a grate.
Sean, listen.
Just kind of coughs and
You are the
splutters and
best
he's
thing
fine.
that ever happened to me in my life. I want you to know that whatever happens, I love you than anything in the world. I'm not dead. I took the
He
poison
kind
an
of
hour
instantly
ago.
comes to that conclusion, doesn't he? I was kind of
I'm not
expecting him to
dead.
just go, I'm not dead, I'm alive, it was all a trick. But yeah, it was a test of character. There was nothing in the file apart from a particularly foul-tasting but harmless liquid. Kind of easy to see that one coming as well, but Shelby doesn't want to kill off the finally perfect father he's found. I mean, I'd argue that he's a terrible father because he has blackouts and kind of doesn't really tell anyone, but remains in a position of responsibility. But anyway, fighting. Me failing those twisty ones. I never really got the hang of those. Managed a twisty one. Yay.
Save me. Please, save me.
I do the right thing and save him and try and make a peaceful arrest. Dick. Immediately resumes the fight. What a prick. You're left with no choice. Scott Shelby has to die. I believe the only way for him not to die is for you to do badly and for him to get away with his crimes. It's clearly a bad ending, so... yeah, so passes Scott Shelby. At the last, an NPC. So a decent ending. Jaden lives. Ethan lives. Sean lives. Shelby gets his comeuppance. Madison dies, because I suck at hiding in fridges, but apart from that. That was Heavy Rain, and it remains only for us to see the endings. You earn a trophy for saving the kid. Daw. You earn a trophy, Simple Mind. Not sure what that's for. Saying I'm simple, fuck you.
There was general relief this morning when the police announced that they had found Mars alive more than 4 days after his disappearance. Mars had been imprisoned in a well by the man known as the Origami Killer. The successful resolution of this case was made possible only by the bravery of Ethan Mars, who the police believed at one point to be the killer. It is no doubt due to his great courage and tenacity that he succeeded in foiling the plans of the Origami Killer. The police commissioner presented him with an official apology. Our main headline today. It is reported that the police have identified the man thought to be the Origami Killer. Scott Shelby, 48, is a former police lieutenant who claimed to be a private eye hired by the families of the killer's victims. Shelby was killed during a massive police operation, but further details have not yet been released to the public. In a related tragedy, it was learned that the investigation has cost the life of Addison Page, a young reporter covering the Origami Killer story.
In other news, police have arrested an umbrella salesman who had systematically carried out the murders of anyone not selling black umbrellas in town.
Is this where we're going to live now?
Yeah, I kind of thought furniture was overrated, so we're not going to have any of that.
Find something you like.
Seriously, does he not need therapy or something? He was in a grate for 5 days. He had no food. Had plenty of water, but no food.
I will never let anyone or anything separate us again. We're stuck with each other.
This is basically, I think, the second best ending you can get for Ethan. He's happy with his son, but he's not married to Madison on account of her being dead. I'm glad I never suffered from completely unexplained blackouts.
Alright, then I think we can stay here. Journalist Madison Page was laid to rest in Charity Cross Cemetery today. Her heroic death while investigating the disappearance of Sean Mars has made a lasting impression on the whole country. Colleagues from the press are united in paying tribute to this courageous journalist who sacrificed her life in this for truth. I'm Brittany Sanders for ICN.
Okay, Brittany, it's a wrap.
Great. Let's get out of here. All this hokey claptraps made me hungry.
Damn it, the police arrested the only umbrella salesman in town. Now I have to get wet. Look, just let me have one more go on this piano, okay? We're almost finished.
Our guest today is on the cover of today's World magazine this week and has been hailed by the whole nation as a new hero for our times. Astonishingly, he almost single-handedly ended the sinister series of killings by the man known as the Origami Killer and saved the life of young Sean Mars. His determination, courage, and intelligence have won our admiration. Norman Jayden.
Is it usual for FBI agents to end up on talk shows? He kicks the tryptocane habit, which is good, but Jayden's endings aren't really that great, because if he's successful, as he was here, then we see things are getting a bit weird for it. He's hallucinating. Inside alley and outside alley. All that for a system that didn't really do anything that you couldn't have done on Windows 7. Where did it come from anyway? Like, exactly what area is supposed to be, I'm not sure. And finally, Lauren.
You killed my son, Scott. Were you thinking about that when you held me in your arms? I don't know why you did all this. Nothing can justify it anyway. I feel nothing but contempt for you. Nothing but contempt.
How did they bury him exactly? He got mashed up in a grinder.
I want to see them again. I'm a father too.
Well, that's that. Credits including a screenshot of Ethan killing the drug dealer, which we didn't do, so that's a bit lazy. Thank you for watching Let's Play Heavy Rain. It was an interesting experience. I think I've highlighted quite a number of problems I have with the game. It's enjoyable, it's immersive in many ways, but ultimately I do think it's considerably overrated, and I think it's quite dangerous really if we hold this up as an example of the best storytelling that the video game industry can do, because it just isn't. Nevertheless, I suppose worth a play if you haven't played it before, although I have spoiled the awful plot twists for you. And I do hope Quantic Dream continue to attempt to make decent interactive fiction and actually succeed this time. That was me turning off my console. So I thank you once again for watching. It's been fun, and goodbye.